How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all having a good day. I apologize for the delay in releasing this video, but I had tons of stuff going on and then I got sick and then my microphone broke, so I pretty much had the trifecta against me when trying to complete this video. First things first though, we're going to give away that copy of Okage, and we actually had 71 different people comment on the last video, which is the highest we've ever had. And Anonymous, you're the winner of Okage, so just send me a message to gettingyournerdon13@gmail.com and I will send it out to you. And if you didn't win, don't worry, because we're going to have another giveaway today in this video. And before we hit the flea market, we're going to check out this package that my buddy Paul from the Netherlands sent over. Now, he saw my video for checking out some imports and had one that he wanted to send my way that we can take a look at here. And I just love this box. I mean, look at this. It looks like the beginning of Ace Ventura when he's delivering that package and he's in the elevator. The post office didn't really treat this thing kindly, but luckily it was packaged well enough to where nothing was damaged. And unfortunately, this is one of those RPGs that never left Japan, and it actually has not been fully fan translated. They did get a chunk of the way through it, but they never actually finished the story, which sucks because Square was one of the best developers, if not the best, of the entire 1990s, and they just killed it pretty much the entire decade. This is Romancing Saga 2, and if you're into Squaresoft at all, you've most likely heard of this game. Most people just haven't actually played it though. It did receive a worldwide re-release within the past couple years, where it was officially translated and found its way into all modern consoles, including the PS4 and the Switch. And maybe that'll inspire the people to go back and finish it up, because I would love to see the original version of this game fully fan translated. And this is what a Super Famicom game looks like on the inside, quite a bit different from its Super Nintendo counterpart. Immediately you can tell that the box is a lot smaller. Here's the manual, again it's also much smaller, but it is in full color and overall it's a pretty nice manual. And next we have this small diagram about exactly how to plug your console into the wall. I don't see how it's not exactly self-explanatory. It does have the official Nintendo logo in the bottom right though, a nice weird color green. One of the more noticeable differences between Super Nintendo and Super Famicom releases is the tray that comes in the box. As you can see, the tray here is plastic, whereas a Super Nintendo game would have come with a cardboard one. Super Nintendo games were originally packaged with a dust cover, although the Super Famicom never officially received one. These days you are able to buy 3D printed ones online though. This cart looks brand new, like it's never even been played before, and that Super Nintendo gray has always looked great. And just remember, with the Super Nintendo as well as the N64, all of the boards across the world are universal. The region lock is actually contained in the shape of the cartridge itself, unlike the NES and the Famicom, which actually had different boards with a different amount of pins in them. And to put this release into perspective, it came out after Secret of Mana and before Final Fantasy IV. So that's everything that came in the box, and now let's check out the game. Romancing Saga 2 was developed and published by Squaresoft and released in 1993 exclusively in Japan for the Super Famicom. It is the 5th game in the Saga series that has grown to 13 entries. The 7 heroes who once saved the world vanished centuries ago and now have returned as demons. You and your heirs must defeat them. The game uses 2 unique mechanics to progress the story. First, depending on your actions, conversations, and party, the storyline changes. Second, at the end of each generation, you must choose an heir to continue the fight. Romancing Saga 2 was remastered and re-released worldwide starting in 2016 for phones, PC, Xbox One, Switch, PlayStation 4, and Vita. And here we are back at the flea market, so this place is just becoming more and more packed every week. There were so many vendors last time that every spot was actually filled up and they had to set up the vendors who came later on the other side of the building. And it's nice to see it like this because it's a complete ghost town in the winter. So first up we have a bin of games, movies, and some accessories. There's a rechargeable Game Boy Advance battery pack, which is actually pretty nice because the original Game Boy Advance took AA's. It didn't have a built-in rechargeable battery. The guy said all the movies in here were $1 and the games varied in price. There's Call of Duty Black Ops 2, we got The Strike there. Call of Duty 3, NFL Fever 2003, which is actually an Xbox exclusive. A copy of Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt down there for the NES. There's a copy of MotorStorm next to Call of Duty Ghosts and Call of Duty 4. Honestly, the selection in here is nice. There's Modern Warfare 2. Here's a DualShock 3 controller. I will be picking it up. I grab them every time I can find them cheap. We got Ghost Recon down there. There's Duke Nukem Forever. Garbage game. It got passed around to too many companies and just became like an incoherent mess at the end. I beat that game and trust me, it sucks. And this stuff's in pretty nice shape overall. I mean, the disc might be scratched, but these games haven't been left out in the rain, which is a common thing to see here. There's a copy of Bruce Lee for the Xbox. You don't see that every day. There's a copy of Grand Theft Auto 4 in the bottom left there, and then we got some Wii stuff up top like Wii Fit and a Cabela game. Here's a copy of Need for Speed Shift. Don't you just love it when they put the rating on the box art? It's not as bad as, what was it, Batman Arkham City. That's probably the worst offender of it. What else do we have here? Another copy of Modern Warfare 2. There's Battlefield 3. More Call of Duty. There's that PlayStation disc. I can't remember what it does. Is that a network disc? I can't remember. Hitman movie. A bunch of stuff. Honestly, nice little lot here to pick from. There's the Ninja Turtles game for the GameCube, and if you play Battle Nexus, you can actually unlock the full 4-player arcade game. Here's a nice little Sega Genesis lot. It could be in a bit better shape. The guy did want $30 for it. This is what I'm talking about. You see how this game got left out in the rain and just soaked on the inside? You also get Columns, which is a game that I've never been a fan of, and Home Alone. This is not the high definition graphics model of the Genesis, so it's a later version of it, but it does have both controllers and all the hookups. And if you were really interested in this lot, you could probably haggle it down to $20. And here's an original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers pool float. This was only $1 and I almost picked it up. It looks to be in fine shape, it just needs to be cleaned up. I mean, this could have a hole in it, I didn't attempt to blow it up. And even if there's a couple dollars to be made off this, I have absolutely nowhere to put this thing. Now here's a nice little stack of pretty much 10-footers in some movies. There's NASCAR, Tiger Woods, another Tiger Woods, Matrix Revolutions, but here's a game I've never heard of or seen before, NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. And believe it or not, there are good NASCAR games like NASCAR Rumble and Rumble Racing. It's complete, and anything in this stack was $2 a piece. It's a nice shape, I've never heard of it, I'm picking it up. And the guy told me I could have all of his games here for $20. There's Blood Rain, that's actually the movie, not the game. Lego Batman, Tony Hawk Ride. I'm not sure there's even $20 worth of games here, actually. There's the Shivering Isles, which is one of the expansions of Oblivion. There's Shrek, the Star Ocean, which is actually a 2-disc game. Gears of War 2, Kiss Pinball. What do you have? Neverland, Battlestar Galactica. And finally, we got Modern Warfare 3, some racing games, and 2 other Call of Duties. Nothing really for me, though. And here is Zumba for the Wii in the big box. Now, one of my collecting goals is to get all of the Wii games that came packaged with an accessory that came in a box exactly this size. I have 5 or 6 of them so far, and this is one that I do need. This game is essentially worthless, and the only reason I'd even pick it up is to complete the set. As you can see, everything inside is new, but this box is pretty damaged, and the guy does want $5 for it, so I'm going to pass on it. Here's a table of games spanning various generations from the Atari 2600 to the Xbox One. Here's Destiny, Madden, and Connect Disneyland, FIFA 14, there's some Dreamcast stuff there, Tiger Woods for GameCube, there's Battleborn, which we talked about before, and a DVD of Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Here we have some PS4 games, there is some Connect required 360 games, which are pretty much trash, more Xbox One sports games, there's more copies of Connect Adventures. What else do we have here? Let's see. 360, more 360, some dance games. Here's some original Xbox and Dreamcast games. In general, this table is just packed with 10-footers. Some figures. Here's a Rock Band dongle. Guy only wanted $2 for it. I should grab them when you see them. And here are some Atari games, and they are insanely clean. These labels look brand new. I've never seen carts with labels in this good a condition. Now, one of the vendors here actually beat me to a table that's outside. He actually has a booth inside, and the guy, all I saw as I was walking up was the guy just walking away with the whole tub of games. This was the tub of games. I knew who the guy was because I bought from him before, so as I was going around on the inside, I had asked him about him if I could look through what he picked up, and he said, yeah, no problem, and he pointed me to this bin. There's Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan. There's Mortal Kombat down there on Super Nintendo. I don't know what I just looked at. Here's a copy of Boxel for the Game Boy. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is on the bottom. There's the Amazing Spider-Man, which I don't have. Here's a copy of Galaga for the NES. It's actually an old arcade game. Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt, and here's a closer look at that Mortal Kombat with some writing on the dust cover. There's actually a complete Super Nintendo and Nintendo console in here, and whenever you're looking through bins like this, just always take a look in the NES because very often there is a game that's still hidden in there. And here is Elevator Action, another game that I didn't have, and this guy sold me 3 games for $10. And here's the Radio Shack Tandyvision 1. Now this is just the Radio Shack version of the Intellivision. Sears did the same thing with the Atari. They had the Telegames 2600, and next to it we have a Texas Instruments TI-99 4A computer. And just take a look at this picture. Not to be rude to the person who painted this, but I mean, this is nightmare fuel. Just straight up nightmare fuel. Here's a blue Game Gear. Now I did a perfect job of standing directly in the light, so this entire shot is going to be in the shade. Now the first thing to remember if you're looking for a Game Gear, they pretty much do not work anymore. The capacitors are garbage and you're going to have to recap the entire thing. Here's a third-party power cord that it comes with, and the games are nothing spectacular. The guy wanted $60 for this. I do need this console, but $60 is steep in this condition. The screen wasn't that great. There was some corrosion in the back where the batteries go, and both of the battery lids were missing. $60, I'm staying far away from this. Like I said, it's going to have to be recapped anyway, so it's too much. Here's a bunch of games on a table that were $2 a piece. You really can't go wrong with any of these. Rainbow Six Vegas, here's World of Outlaws Sprint Cars, and a sealed copy of Fallout New Vegas. Now, the Sprint Cars game I don't see very often. I actually don't think I've ever seen it in the wild once. There's Wheelman, Dark Angel, so I'm going to pick it up, especially for the $2. What else do we have here? Some PS2 10-footers, the Italian Job, Xbox Live Arcade, and then a Just Dance Wii game. And here's a box with dollar games and DVDs. Now at first I kind of thought that this was the same box that I looked through last time, because it actually is in a booth right next to where that other one was, but this is actually a whole different box of games and movies. There's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, and then here's Devil May Cry. $1 each complete. You really can't pass up these games if you don't have them. And I do actually have these, so these are the two games I'm going to give away in this video, Devil May Cry and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. So just leave a comment about absolutely anything on this video. And there was actually no games even on the top of this. I don't know why I even decided to even look in this box. And there's actually a pretty good selection of movies and games. There's some Disney stuff in here that I probably should have grabbed from my nieces. And now here is Minecraft on the PS3. This is probably the 10th time I found this game in the wild, but only the second time that the disc has actually been in the case. For $1, you can't leave that behind. And then finally we have Lego Indiana Jones. Now my girlfriend is a huge fan of the Lego games and she doesn't have that one, so I'm going to pick it up for her. And here's some tables of old but new fast food toys. I've always been fascinated with the idea of this. I want to see a documentary about the people who are in charge of making McDonald's toys, because like they used to only cost $1 and they were licensed and they had to be, you know, designed and then made and to be sold for $1. And I always found that very interesting. And again, I'd like to see a documentary about it. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I know a guy who knows a guy who designs McDonald's toys, and I'd like to hear what he has to say about it. It's very interesting. There's a lot of 90s ones here. 101 Dalmatians, there's some Spider-Man ones, Felix the Cat. I only grabbed 2 of them. They were $1 a piece. I grabbed the alien from Toy Story and then one of the Earthworm Jim figures that was actually from Taco Bell. Here's a Spider-Man one. What else? There's Barbie up there to the left. More Felix the Cat. There's probably money to be made here, but unfortunately I don't know anything about fast food toys or what's worth anything. Here are 2 Wii disc wallets. Now I'm pretty sure these are not officially licensed, even though they pretty much look like they are. The zipper is a Wiimote and it even has the trademark symbol next to the Wii logo on the front. But they were $1 a piece and I've never seen these, and they're oddball enough thing for me to be into, so for $1 a piece I'm going to pick them up. Here's something you don't see every day. It's a Sega CD game. This is Fahrenheit. In this one you actually need the Sega CD and the 32X, both plugged in and working. This is an FMV game, but it's actually pretty good. You have to go in a building and save people from a fire. Here is a PlayStation 2 Slim. The guy wanted $50 for this, I believe. Maybe $60, I can't remember. That might be a good deal at this point, I don't know, but there's no way I'm going to buy a console like this for that amount of money. There's Guitar Hero 3 in there. I mean, there's no return, so it's a little too steep. Now here's a suitcase full of cables and controllers. Guy said he wanted $1 a piece on this. Now there's a dual shock controller. I don't think that's blood. I didn't even notice it while I was there, that red stuff. I don't know what it was. One was a dual shock, one was a dual analog. We'll go into the differences later. There's a Wii power supply. $1 a piece on all this stuff, you can't beat it. Now this is a PlayStation Slim power supply, an original one, the PlayStation 1, the ONE, and it's completely tangled. This thing's a rat's nest, but I'm going to go through and try to get it untangled. Here is a copy of NBA Live 96. I only wanted $1 for it with the case. I just picked it up so we could take a look at it in the video. Spoiler alert, it sucks, and I'm not going to go through this bag much longer because I don't want to get pricked by a hypodermic needle. And here are some DVDs, Blu-rays, and video games. 2 for $5, can't really beat it. Here are 2 Xbox One games in here. This is The Division. And just check out the bottom of this disc, because I don't understand how this will happen. You can clean it and it should play just fine because it doesn't look very scratched, but I just don't understand where that imprint comes from. And then here's Madden 16, which probably fell into the same mud puddle. This disc also looks fine, so they'll both definitely play, and 2 for $5 is a great price if you're looking just for any Xbox One game to play. And here are some PS3 games. Got one at $5 a piece on them. Honestly, pretty nice selection here. Metal Gear Solid 4 is a great game. Batman Arkham City, which is one of my favorite games. Fallout 3 is excellent. Here's some PSP stuff that you don't see all the time, even if these are 10-footers. And here's a copy of Final Fantasy X. Now there was a PS2 memory card in here, which makes it an even better deal at $4, but this disc is so scratched. You can't even tell in this image, but it's so scratched, I don't think that it can even be buffed out to ever work again. And then here's some original Pokemon stuff. Guy threw this stuff out on the table as I was walking up. He said he wanted $1 a piece on them, or he'd give me all 3 of them for $2. Can't beat the price on this. This stuff is original from '98, I believe is when this stuff came out. And with the exception of the one loose Pokeball, it's brand new. Alright, so first up here is the Wii dongle. Now this is the one for the guitar and bass. This era of gaming is like right in between fully wired and fully wireless, so it needed these dongles to kind of bridge that gap. It's actually really annoying because, like I always say, if it's not permanently attached, it's going to be lost, and everybody is pretty much missing one of these, and that's why you can always find them and trade them. And now here's a copy of Need for Speed Shift. And this is what I was talking about with the rating on the front of the box, not the ESRB logo, but the individual ratings of how good companies thought this game was. This is a much more realistic driving simulator. It takes a little bit to get used to, but once you do get used to it, it's actually pretty good. I still will always prefer like the arcade racers, like some of the other Need for Speed games. There's a lot of content here, it's a good game, and the graphics look great. So if you find it cheap, pick it up and give it a try. Need for Speed Shift was developed by Slightly Mad Studios, published by Electronic Arts, and released in 2009 for PC, mobile, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Portable, and Xbox 360. It's the 13th release in the Need for Speed series that started in 1994. Shift takes a much more realistic representation of a driving simulator than many of its arcade-based predecessors. There are over 60 cars to drive on 19 tracks. Some are actual licenses, while others are designed specifically for the game. The Need for Speed series has released 10 games since Shift, with another that is currently in development. And here's another copy of Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt. I did pick one up in the last video. I'll pretty much grab it every time I can find it cheap. Now, the labels on this game, the back one is a bit iffy, but the front one looks fine. When I took this apart, the board on the inside was actually pretty rusted. I had to clean it all up. I didn't take any pictures of it. I should have. I was actually really surprised at the condition of the board because the outside looks fine. Now, the guy with that bin sold me Need for Speed Shift, Super Mario Bros., and this DualShock 3 for 15 bucks, which in my opinion is a good deal, just for the DualShock alone, but I shouldn't have paid that much because I could have gotten home and this might not have worked. I didn't test it there because there was no way to test it. It did clean up just fine and it does work just fine, but the thing of it is that it might not have. Maybe the battery was no good, maybe the sticks drifted, maybe some of the buttons didn't work. So just remember there's no returns on this stuff when you're buying it from the flea market. Next up is Devil May Cry, and this game has just got bigger and bigger over the past years, pretty much culminating in 2019 with Devil May Cry 4. People are absolutely loving that game, and this is one of the biggest series of probably the last 20 years. I've actually never played Devil May Cry. When I was recording the footage for this game, I absolutely loved it. I had an Xbox during this generation, so I was playing Fable and more of the Xbox exclusive games at that time, as well as Grand Theft Auto. I did find the marionette action figures from this game a couple episodes ago, and they look really good. Devil May Cry was developed and published by Capcom and released in 2001 exclusively for the PlayStation 2. The game was originally a Resident Evil installment, but did not fit with that franchise, so it was released as a standalone game. It follows Dante, a demon hunter in business to get revenge. It's a hack-and-slash action game where you are awarded grades by how stylish your combat is. Devil May Cry has 4 more games in the series that were released between 2003 and 2019, 2 HD remasters, an animated series, and a failed reboot in 2013. And next we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I forgot just how fun this game was. When I put it in to get footage for it, I just played it for quite a while. The game is just so easy to get into. This is actually the last officially licensed game that ever was released for the Nintendo 64 in 2001. The Tony Hawk series was an immediate hit as soon as it came out, and people don't only love the games, but they love the soundtracks too. And the Tony Hawk series is still going today. There's been a couple stinkers along the way, like the Game Boy version of the original Tony Hawk game and Tony Hawk Ride. The games that used the peripherals were panned by critics and just never caught on. Next up is LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures. Now, the best LEGO game is probably still the LEGO Lord of the Rings game. One of the things that sets it apart from almost all the other LEGO games is that it uses the actual vocal tracks from the movies, which makes it feel a lot more authentic, and you're able to go out and explore all of Middle-earth, and there's just so much to do. This was actually a packing game for the Xbox 360 a long time ago, and it was paired up in a 2-pack with Kung Fu Panda. LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures was developed by Traveler's Tales, published by LucasArts, and released in 2008 for PC, Xbox 360, Nintendo DS and Wii, and PlayStation 2, 3, and PSP. It is the 4th release in the LEGO licensed video game line that has grown to over 25 games. The game takes you through modified versions of the original trilogy as you seek out the world's greatest treasures. There are over 60 characters to play as. The sequel, LEGO Indiana Jones 2 The Adventure Continues, was released in 2009 and includes newly designed levels from the original trilogy as well as levels from the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Next up is the PlayStation 3 edition of Minecraft. Now, it seems like every console has actually gotten its own version of this game. I'm not exactly sure what the differences are. Minecraft doesn't really need any introduction. It doesn't even really need much of an explanation. It's a sandbox type game where you're just released in the world and you can pretty much create and do whatever you want. The things that people design in this game have become absolutely ridiculous. There's a video online of someone who created the entire island of Lost and somebody else made a gigantic working calculator. Here's the Wii disc wallet. Now, I did grab both just because they were $1 a piece. I'm pretty sure, like I said before, these are not officially licensed by Nintendo, even though they look like they are. But normally Nintendo will have something sewn in somewhere, or at least a tag that says it's officially licensed by Nintendo, neither of which are present here. So I don't know who made this, but the quality seems pretty good on these. Here is NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. Now, I'm not familiar with this series at all, but I am familiar with NASCAR Heat, which it says the creators also made, which is a game that's still going now. There's actually a version of it on the PlayStation 4. So this is more of a realistic driving game, not very realistic, but more than like Mario Kart. The PS1 game NASCAR Rumble was actually just like a Mario Kart clone, and NASCAR even had a kart racing game for the Wii called NASCAR Kart Racing. So whether you like your games more realistic or less realistic, when it comes to NASCAR, there's going to be something for you. NASCAR Dirt to Daytona was developed by Monster Games, published by Infogrames and released in 2002 for the PlayStation 2 and GameCube. The game is a NASCAR racing simulator that has you competing through 4 different circuits. There are also 34 challenge scenarios to complete. The game sports 31 tracks overall, with 20 of them being official NASCAR ones, 42 official drivers, and a 43-car racing field. You are able to upgrade your car with over 100 different parts and a custom paint job. During the races, your vehicle will take realistic damage from scratches to complete destruction. And here's NBA Live 96. Now honestly, when I put this in for the first time, I really thought that what I was looking at was a joke. It's hard for me to believe that somebody made and sold this with a straight face. The thing of it is it's a very ambitious game and it's done on the Game Boy, which isn't very powerful. But it does have all the teams of the time and there are a ton of options to customize games. NBA Live 96 was developed by multiple companies, published by Electronic Arts, and released between 1995 and 1996 for PC, PlayStation, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy. It is the second release in the NBA Live series, which began in 95 and replaced the NBA Playoffs games. Live 96 features all 29 NBA teams, 2 All-Star teams, and 4 custom teams to choose from. Although the Game Boy version has very lackluster graphics and sound, it is packed with options. Some will adjust the rules from a straight-up simulation to a more relaxed arcade game. You can also watch 2 computer-controlled teams play each other. And now onto some hardware. Here is a Wii power cord. This is only $1. I recommend you pick up every single one of these that you ever find for $1. I've never come across any of these that actually haven't worked. Just make sure the cables haven't been nicked by a knife or anything and that it overall looks good and it'll work. Now here is the PS1 power supply. I dug this out of that rat's nest of cables for $1. Again, pick up every single one of these that you see. You will always find the PS1 mini console by itself and the controllers by themselves, but you will never find the power supply. And there was actually 2 in that rat's nest of cables, so I grabbed both of them. I even have a PS1 mini right now that doesn't have a power supply. So like I said, just grab them when you find them. And here's that DualShock controller. It cleaned up nice. I don't know what that red stuff was on the bag before, but this thing is one of the cleanest controllers I've seen in a long time. So this is the original DualShock controller, which means it was the original controller that actually had the rumble feature in it for the PlayStation, but is not the original PlayStation controller to have the analog sticks, which we're going to see in a second. Here is the dual analog controller, which you can already tell immediately that this is different. So this controller does not have the rumble feature, but it does have the analog sticks in it. And you can see these ones are concave instead of convex like the DualShock controller has. And even the top trigger buttons are a little different. And also you can see the handles are a little longer on the controller. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the two. And here are the 3 games that I grabbed from that guy. He sold all 3 of them to me for $10. The first one here is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, and even more than Minecraft, this game needs no introduction. It's a classic, one of the best games of all time, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!. If you haven't played it, go play it. Here's Elevator Action. It's a game that I didn't have and I'm looking to fill in my NES collection whenever I can. It's an old arcade game with a basic premise that just keeps getting more and more difficult as the levels progress. Elevator Action was developed and published by Taito and released in 1983 for arcades and in 1987 for the NES. The game centers around a spy who infiltrates buildings from the rooftop in order to obtain secret documents. You must ascend 30 floors using elevators and escalators, avoid or kill enemy agents, and find specific red doors to collect secret documents. All hidden secret documents must be collected before the level can be completed. As the levels progress, the building structure stays the same, but the elevators get harder to navigate and there are more documents to collect. Elevator Action had multiple updated versions released over the years for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Sega Saturn. And finally, the 3, we have The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, the internet seems to hate this game, but I didn't find it that bad when I was playing it. I actually thought it was very playable, not saying I liked it more than the Spider-Man game that we took a look at a couple episodes back on the Game Boy Color, but I didn't think by any means that it was a bad game. The Amazing Spider-Man was developed by Rare, published by LJN, and released in 1990 exclusively for the Game Boy. The game has Spider-Man fighting classic enemies like Mysterio, Dr. Octopus, and Venom as he attempts to save his wife, Mary Jane. The Amazing Spider-Man is partly a side-scrolling beat-em-up and partly a vertical scrolling wall climber. To save Mary Jane, you're going to have to punch, kick, shoot webs, and swing your way through 8 stages. The Amazing Spider-Man received 2 Game Boy exclusive sequels in 1992 and 1993, however neither were developed by Rare. And for the final game of the video, we have World of Outlaws Sprint Cars. Now, like I said, this is a game I've never actually seen in the wild. Now, when I was playing this game, I actually had a blast playing this. It's a fun game overall, but one of my favorite features, and I don't know why this is a thing because I looked up the rules of sprint cars and couldn't find it, but you can only use your windshield wiper so many times per round. So if you're allocated like 7 wipes of your windshield and you exhaust those, and you still have 10 laps to go, you are unable to use your windshield wiper and dirt and mud just cake up all over your windshield. So after a while, you can't even see the screen. World of Outlaws Sprint Sprint Cars was developed by Big Ant Studios, published by THQ, and released in 2010 physically for the Xbox 360 and digital only in North America for the PlayStation 3. The previous World of Outlaws Sprint Cars game was released in 2002 only for the PlayStation 2. Starting your career off as a rookie, you'll race around the United States and upgrade your car in an attempt to win the Charlotte Dirt Track World Finals. Sprint Cars has 12 real tracks to race on and 20 real-life sprint car drivers to race against. Races can be customized by adjusting the time of day, the number of laps and opponents, the difficulty, and the level of damage. 8 people can race each other online, or 2 can race each other locally using split screen. Well, that's all the stuff that I picked up recently. What have you been finding or playing? Don't forget to leave a comment to be entered to win the next giveaway, and as always, stay nerdy.
Getting your nerd on, getting your nerd on, getting your nerd on.
I got a raging nerd on.